In today's video, we're going to talk about the importance of sellers preemptively removing all capital expenditures and one-time expenses from the repairs and maintenance category prior to the broker doing their BOV. All right, stick around. Let's go! Okay, so as a listing broker, my job, of course, is to bring the highest price I possibly can from the best buyer and the best terms. In that capacity as a broker, what we're trying to do is create a forward-looking income statement that a buyer will possess, that a lender will give them money for, which of course those expenses will be totally different than the seller's expenses. One of the big categories I look into is the repairs and maintenance category. I look at the overall expenses per unit and how that compares to industry averages, and in particular, if the asset I'm about to list has a much higher expense per unit in the repairs and maintenance, I definitely want to dive deeper to see what's going on there. All lenders and the buyers want to see a reserve factor or an expense line item to account for capital expenditures and one-time expenses. So we as brokers, when we create our forward-looking income statement, always stick in a reserve factor, which can range from anywhere between $300 and $500 per unit per year. But what a listing broker and seller want to be careful of is that they're not double counting one-time expenses or capital expenditures. We don't want to see a bunch of capital expenditures in the repairs and maintenance category, and as a broker, we add a reserve factor. Now we're double counting, which lowers your net income, which lowers your value. So I always ask the seller and their property manager to look into the repairs and maintenance category and pull out all of the one-time expenses like air conditioning units and roof, asphalt replacement, flooring, and so on. Okay, let me give you a quick example of how important this is. Okay, here's a traditional trailing 12 income statement with each month's income and expenses across the top. It totals in the column N and we have the dollar per unit. I'm using a 150 unit example apartment complex here. If you'll look in this example for a 150 unit deal, the total operating expenses per unit per year is about $6,600. That's about $600 a unit, a little bit higher than what I typically see. As I go through each of the columns, the one that jumps out to me is the repairs and maintenance, over $900 a unit a year. Usually I see between $500 and $700 depending on the age of the asset. So I know right off the bat that's one I want to jump into. Now you'll also note that I've already stuck in a reserve factor of roughly $400 per unit per year. Now, after having a Zoom call with the seller and their property manager, we were able to pull out these various costs of capital expenditures that happen throughout the year. They totaled roughly $63,000 in one-time expenses. So we have $63,000 in expenses right here on top of the $60,000 in reserves that we added in. So what I as the broker will typically do is pull these $63,000 in expenses out of the income statement. I'll stick in the more standard $400 a unit per year reserve factor and then complete my valuation. Removing that $63,000 from above the NOI line would drop this $6,600 to probably about $6,100 or $6,200, and now we're in line. But here's the big picture. Had we not done this exercise, the $63,000 would have stayed in, divided by a 6% cap rate, and you've lost $1 million in value, or almost $7,000 per unit, because of the double counting of one-time expenses. I ain't about to leave no $1 million on the table for my seller. So my advice to sellers is go ahead and get the income statements and the rent rolls to your listing broker so they can begin the valuation, and let them know simultaneously you'll be working with your team to pull out any one-time expenses from the repairs and maintenance section. You can always get that information back to the broker and they can make a quick adjustment in their pro forma. I hope this video brought you some value, and if it did, as usual, please hit that like down below. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified of my videos each week. See you guys in the next one.